Now, last year, Channel 4 News told the story of Paul Kello. He was suffering from dystonia, a neurological condition that made him shake uncontrollably and caused him considerable pain. A recommended treatment was available, but it was expensive, and his local health authority was the only one in the country to refuse to offer it. He was a victim of the postcode lottery. But eventually, the trust changed its mind, and Mr. Kello has now had the surgery. Our health and social care correspondent, Victoria MacDonald, has been back to see him.
This was Paul Kello at the end of May. The spasms were caused by dystonia, a neurological condition which made his muscles contract painfully and ceaselessly.
Sometimes I feel just like burst out crying, to be honest with you, because I don't know where to go, and I'm just so tired all the time.
This is Paul Kello now, following a procedure called deep brain stimulation. But this was a treatment that was repeatedly turned down by his local health authority in the East Midlands, despite the fact it had been recommended by his consultant, someone, as it happens, who is an international authority on the condition.
For reasons that nobody has ever been able to adequately explain, the East Midlands Health Authority decided that there was not enough evidence that deep brain stimulation works for dystonia, yet it's a treatment that is recommended by the National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence. And as we discovered, it is also funded by every other health authority in England, as long as the patients meet the criteria, which Mr. Kello did.
Mr. Kello's primary care trust in Leicestershire told us at the time that there had been a lack of clinical evidence. But then, out of the blue, he was told it had been referred to an independent funding review panel, and on the 20th of June it was suddenly approved. No new clinical evidence had actually been submitted. What undoubtedly helped was his brother's intervention. Nigel Kello, a doctor himself, went to battle with the Primary Care Trust. He also contacted Channel 4 News to highlight this postcode lottery. Finally, though, in October, Mr. Kello had the operation at the National Hospital for Neurology in London.
I drilled the top of my head, I put the electrodes in. I've got two lumps here, one here, one here. I've got a mound that runs the back of my head behind my ear. It joins onto a battery which is embedded in my chest just there.
The batteries will have to be changed in 5 years' time, but the operation has been pronounced a success.
When you came and filmed me before, there was no way I could sit like this without shaking. And this is what they made me do in the hospital. They made me sit on the edge of a chair and see how long it took me before I started shaking. After the operation, they were absolutely amazed because it just stopped. And even people in the ward, a couple of days after the operation, they said, "Paul, you're not shaking."
The Dystonia Society has had to fight for other patients like Mr. Kello to be treated, but now they say there is hope. Under the NHS reforms, funding decisions for rarer procedures will in the future be made by the National Commissioning Board.
They've just issued a draft policy for the whole of England which suggests that deep brain stimulation will now be routinely funded if the patients meet the criteria. So hopefully these kind of situations will not arise again in future.
He's a good boy, yes.
The fact remains Mr. Kello was a victim of a postcode lottery. If he had lived anywhere else in England, he would not have had to fight for this procedure. But in the end, he did win, and it has given him his life back.